Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show. And today I have the pleasure of introducing you. I want to get the name right. David Chemetsky. David is a deep message expert, a speaker, author, podcast host, and producer, a TEDx speaker, executive coach, author, media host, growth coach, mentor, and philanthropist. Gosh, I'm tired just reading all that. A true pathfinder with a mission to uplift lives in every way by empowering individuals and groups day by day. Discover resources for empowering personal growth and embrace resilience. He brings insights and unique guiding principles through his content and teaching so others can grow and overcome obstacles. Let me tell you, every entrepreneur needs this stuff, right? Oh my goodness. Welcome, David. Come on in.
How you doing? Thanks so much, Jeanette. I appreciate you. That every time I hear the bio, I'm like, yeah, who did all those things? But you start accumulating talents and how you bring it in together. That's the trick.
It's true. I mean, I look back and, I have friends and they've been in the same company for like 10, 20 years. And, my first thought is, God, how boring. and they're like, oh, Jeanette, you're so brave to be an entrepreneur and and you struggle so much with this and with that. And I'm like, but you know what? Every day is a new challenge and I'm constantly having to learn stuff new. And I like that. And I've got to do things that if I'd been working for somebody, I never would have done, like having a podcast, like writing my book. I probably would have written a book anyway, because I love to write, but like, there's just things that I wouldn't have done if I'd been working for somebody else,
I don't know. I worked at corporate America for 30 years. But the answer is I always did something for myself.
Yeah.
And that's what it is finding that balance. What works for you? There's a lot of people that I know who would never be able to handle what I have handled or the things that I've done. That's really what goes on. It is, and there's things that I'm sure that you've done that I couldn't do if I tried.
We all have different skills, right? That's a blessing.
Exactly. We all have a different skill set, and that's why we need to find the right community, find the right people to talk to us about. And even the way that you and I met, interior design. I didn't do that. That wasn't what I was doing for 30 years. But for 2.5 years, I ran a company, an interior design company, a manufacturing company in Westchester, New York. So you just don't know what's going to happen, and when you put yourself together and what opportunities. It's just like, okay, let's do that.
So with all these things, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I love the storytelling part of it. So,
Yeah.
so the being an author and hearing other people's stories. So I do ghostwriting, and
Mm.
and how it all those things align with branding. So all of those things is the story that we tell others,
Yeah.
and hopefully the story. It's not really a story; it's who you are. A lot of people, go, but other people do this. I'm like, I don't want to care. What do you want to do? I want you to make your own choices. I mean, like the picture behind me, you see me kissing a baseball bat. That's my podcast. It's called Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. And when I was first told about it, people were like, oh, nobody's going to like it. Women aren't going to like it. It sounds violent. I'm like, do I look like a violent guy? I go up, and all these things. I go, if they're scared of me, then those aren't my people. Because they've gone through some life experiences, and I've gone through life experiences, and that's what I talk about. And once I am able to transmute some of the traumas to then find the easier way to go through things, that's why it's how we do it. No matter what you do, when you're in your house, you're telling them a story. You're not just telling them, what to do because it's their house. They have an idea, but you walk through their story. They'll tell
Yeah.
you a little bit of story, but your expertise is that I know how to get you that story.
Right.
And that's what makes you and others like yourself so special, and that's what makes me special. Is this whole week I've sat down with 4 new clients and helped them align. They came to me, they had a story, and they didn't see how their lives were weaved in and out of things. So it's really special. I get blessed all the time, and I have so many clients who've been like, I could never have done this with anybody else. And that's where I love that part of it, that, when I can bring something unique, or you see that spark in somebody's eye, those are magic moments.
They really are. In creating somebody's message. I mean, I've spent 20 years doing this, and I'm working on a new book and creating the message for that. And it's very personal. It's very vulnerable, and it can be scary.
Sure.
But at the same time, as like when I wrote my first book, a lot of people came to me and said, Jeanette, you're so brave. And I'm like, I just had to do it. And many times in my life, people have come, oh, Jeanette, you're so brave. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just did what I had to do, and it's like, I don't really like the whole Raiders of the Ark, the step appears kind of thing. Like, but there's an element of, I have to keep taking the road less traveled. I just don't know how, like,
I'm with you.
I have to do it.
But there is. So like a lot of people go, oh, that's so brave of you. I've heard the same thing. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just being me. I'm
right.
Not, but those opportunities come because you're looking for them. You're seeking them. You might not be seeking it. There's a lot of things I wasn't seeking, but then I was put in a position and I knew how to handle it. I have the ability. I mean, again, so I got a golden handshake 2.5 years ago from, my corporate job that I was in 22 years.
Wow.
I wasn't looking to leave. They were having a staff reduction of 10,000 people. So I was one of those people. And I walked into with my, Plaza Park Interiors, and it was a friend of mine who I knew since I was 14. He goes, Dave, I know you can help me. And I did until 2 months ago. And I stepped away only because I had a heart condition that I didn't know I was having. So it's those opportunities that you take. I didn't know that I could help run a company. And I learned a lot of things. I knew I had some skill set, but a lot of people would have been like, how'd you do that? Why'd you do that? I'm like, why not, man? Like I'm helping my best friend. Are you kidding me? Who doesn't want to help their best friend and, to do something? It was exciting. A little stressful. So that's why I walked away. He still wants me. We talk all the time. We went to a Met game last week, and it's one of those things, you have to take care of yourself. So I wasn't physically taking care of myself. Now I am, but it's one of those things. You don't get the opportunities unless you start looking for them.
Yeah.
I was able to pivot so quickly with my coaching and all these other things because I've been building it all along. It didn't happen to me. Life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. Right. Yeah. It's a way to look at it. Even the bad things that have happened to you is just a way. It's a test sometimes how to identify how you're reacting. Are you reacting in a healthy way, or you're not acting in a healthy way? And those are the opportunities for growth and to make sure it doesn't happen again.
It's so true. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have to really focus on that, because if you can't be a victim and be an entrepreneur. No. But let me ask you a question, because I've really only been in design. I mean, I've been in many aspects of design, but I've really been in design. I was 3 years in publishing when I first got out of school, but after that it's been design. And when I've talked with coaches, when I've talked with bookkeepers, they're all like, well, how do you do that? Like, it feels like design, the reactions I get is like design's like a really different kind of business. What is your experience with that?
Yeah, design is definitely a different, I was just like, all right, it's running a business, man. I didn't know, and I still don't know, so much, but there's a lot, I'm just like, okay, what do you do? Design or the manufacturing side of it, the different, all the different styles, right? Roman shades, the making of the shades, the making of the furniture, and the different cornices, and even the wands, right? There's so many different things that I didn't think.
That's just one element is draperies, right?
Right.
That doesn't count furniture. That doesn't count flooring, tile, everything else.
Yeah. So it's a world that I didn't know anything about, And I'll still admit I don't know a lot of it because I was running the business aspects of it, but I learned a little bit of it, and then I was able to, that's the part of it that's we all don't realize. All these other worlds that happen within our world. Like I have a legal background. I'm not a lawyer, but for 30 years I was working in the legal industry. All the little pieces of that do translate. So when you have a skill set, and this is where, and that's what I said. It just coming in and you throw me into the deep water. It's tough to learn all those things, but it's doable. It's how much time you're going to put into it, and there's always something to learn. That's the part that is amazing, and that's why I love working with people to hear their stories, help them with their stories, because there's always something. None of us live an ordinary life. There might be some ordinary things in our life, but we don't live an ordinary life. There is so much magic there.
And that's one of the favorite parts of my business is what I do is I get to tell people stories, and I get to tell the best part of their stories. And I transmute, the sadness of divorce or death or, empty nesting or, sometimes it can, even a new house is like, it's exciting, but it's a death too. You had to give up the old house.
So I have a story like that because one of the things I do is charitable work, a lot of charity work. And, when somebody dies, what do you do with the clothes? What do you do with the furniture, stuff like that? And when my friend's husband passed away, she was like, Dave, I need your help. You got to help me take care of Mike's things. And I go, don't worry, I'll get rid of it. And that energy she didn't like. No. And we started talking about it, right? This is years ago. This is not recent. But now I go, okay, I'm going to find it love somewhere else. And that's where, when we transmute that, yes, you might be leaving it, even if you don't want to leave that house. And I've been divorced. I've had to leave houses. So, it's how we move that energy,
right?
And it's tough at times, right? It's we're humans living in a soulful experience. We resist to that.
Yeah,
and I understand that.
You don't always want to throw everything away. No. I had a client. This story is very sweet. So her husband's name was Jack. It was Jack and Jackie. Can you get cuter than that? Yep. Right? And they were at the Trevi Fountain, and she fell in love with this scarf, and it was a Jack of Clubs card, and they didn't buy it for whatever reason. And the next day, right before they got on their plane, he went and he bought it and he surprised her with it. And he'd been in a lot of clubs. He was a CEO of a steel manufacturing company at the time. And so he was in this club and that club. And, that's how you networked, right?
Yep.
And so when he died, she was so used to having his picture over the fireplace. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. But we took this scarf and reframed it. And so she could still have, and this was a very romantic memory for her. So she could still have something precious there, but it didn't have to feel like a ghost in the house. And so it's doing that line of like, okay, what's going to make them feel comforted? She was 80 odd years old. She had no intention of getting married again. If there's younger, maybe, but like some women, they're just like, this is it. When he's gone, I'm still hanging on to him. And that's kind of where she was. And they were married for 50 years. I mean,
Yeah, I can't imagine that, but
right.
That's what happens is, the funny story with that is I have somebody through meeting, through connections who just got remarried at 94. She goes, I'm still here. He's still here. Why can't we get married? I'm like, I'm not telling you can't do anything.
Right.
I think that's
enjoy life, right?
And really what is really important about that is also the idea that while we're living, keep growing, keep living life to your fullest. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know any of that information really. And you don't know when something could switch, not to be thinking negatively, but live life and be present in the now.
Yes. Is so important. So let's talk about messaging seems to be a big thread through all of the things that you're doing. So how do you start figuring out somebody's message? Because there's so many marketing things out there, and everybody's kind of like, oh, I've got the thing, and it's so personal. It's so personal. And when you don't forget that personal, you lose it. So where do you start?
Well, I start getting to know their story. I have a 7-step process where I go, okay, what are we doing? Why are you doing it? Right.
Mhm.
You got to know your why, and not just, oh, I'm doing it because I want to make money. It's got to be something that's a little bit more personal. And the reason why, it's always got to be authentic. I mean, that's really one of the meanings of the BAT, being authentic today. It's an acronym, but it really goes back to, if you know everything about yourself, and when you do that, that's what they're going to buy. I mean, when you're working with a client, they can get anybody to get them new flooring, get them new things, but they're buying you and your vision. And
Right.
the same thing in any business. It really goes into every business. It translates into every aspect of our life. I mean, that's why even in our personal relationships, right? You don't want, oh, Joe's funny. He doesn't, he's not really meaning all the things he says. And, for me, better or for worse, my friends, put up with me. I am who I am. And that's what I want people to know about me. There's characteristics of what we put out there when we talk about the business. When I think of Jeanette, I mean, you and I don't know each other well yet, but there's characteristics you want. You want everybody to know that you're knowledgeable, that you're a safe space, that they can kind of push back and not be like, no, this is the way it's going. There's a lot of different areas to dive into by having those conversations with somebody. That's why all those people who are going, oh, I can help you marketing, I'll give you a brand. Brand is more than just, and your story is much more than just a logo. It's attitude. It says what you are before you walk in there, right? I use the quick examples of like Coke and Pepsi, right? When you grab something from Coke or Pepsi, you expect a certain flavor.
Mhm.
When you go to supermarket and you get the supermarket brand of soda or pop, you might expect a less flavor, right? And by doing that, that's where the challenge goes, is you want to have that really elite brand. You want to have that brand that they know what they got when they walk in. For me, between the peace, love, and bring a bat and the it's your time to soar, they know that it's going to be something a little bit different, right? It's not going to be just something simple. And if you follow me on social media, you definitely know I'm always pushing an envelope to really have those conversations, because I would rather you say, Dave, you're not right for me, than me to just try to help everybody. I don't help everybody. I want to make sure that the right people are telling their story in the right way for them. I'll never tell them, okay, well, first thing you have to do, Jeanette, is you have to grab a bat and that's going to help you. No, it's right for me, but for you, it wouldn't be right for a lot of reasons. But, just using that as an extreme example. Same thing when you're writing a book. That's why I've been a TEDx speaker. So I know how to teach people how to be an elite speaker. And all that messaging comes in, because when you're aligned, when you have your own book, when you're able to speak on stage or elsewhere, even just as a sales conversation, getting comfortable around that speaking part is so important. And when that's all aligned in the one thing that you have, man, life becomes easier. You don't have to think of what you're doing. Oh, when I'm with Jeanette, I got to do this.
Right.
When I have to do that. No. This is who I am. Better or for worse.
And so many people don't know how to explain their business well. I've been to countless networking things, and I just I was on a summit with some people, and I was like listening to them, and I'm like, these people don't know what they're selling. I did a sales call last night. Oh, let me tell you how much I hate those. But, they just drill in you and they play psychologist and make you feel like shit. And then the last 10 minutes, oh, guess what? I can fix all your problems. I'm like, I still don't know who you are. I still don't know what you do. And now you want me to give you a bunch of money. No, you got to tell me what you do. Yeah. So I asked her what she did, and she still couldn't tell me. She's like, well, it's coaching. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
I've been coaching for a while, and that's among the work that I do. I just had a client, somebody who I signed up as a client, who was like, "You're like nobody else," because not only will I say, "Meet me for an hour for free," and then I'm going to build you something for free and give you your roadmap. You can go by yourself. I wouldn't advise it, right? It's like, hey, go into the forest and you can go. Here's what you should do. But if you don't understand all the left turns, then it doesn't matter. But
Right.
you know, that's where a lot of coaches, because they just read a book, oh, I know how to do this. They
Right.
don't know how to explain what they did. And truthfully, you know, we also sometimes have the problem we don't recognize what we value we bring until we have to sit and think about it. That's the really empower. Even myself. So I had the 30-year career, which I hadn't really talked a lot about it, and then I'm like, man, I worked for Pfizer. I worked, for 22 years. I helped manage the IP department, and I helped billion-dollar products stay billion-dollar products. In terms of intellectual property, I wasn't the attorney running it, but I walked into some of the inventors of some of the biggest projects in the world. I didn't think about that till the past couple of months when I'm like, man, like, what do I do? Because somebody had tried to interview me, and they were like, "Well, what did you do in corporate America?" I was like, "Well, I'm intellectual property manager." Sounds nice. It sounds like a great title, but what did I really do? I ran $100 million budget, litigation budget. So I knew how to run budgets. I knew how to push when I had to push, and I knew how to do that. That's when I went from Pfizer to Plaza Park, I knew how to run budgets. I knew when we even brought in a consultant, they were like, "Yeah, just get Dave. He knows what to do." It's not easy, right? It's not easy to
No.
tame the tiger, and I wasn't great at all the aspects of it. You need the right supports, and so that's why when I stepped away from my health right now, I'm like, all the things I know how to do, I can do, and I can have you do. Could you imagine when you have the clarity to become the brand that you want to be? That's the power.
It is. It is. I've talked to a lot of different marketing people over the years and gotten some really stupid advice. And I've gotten some good advice, but it is getting to the heart of your message is one of the harder things I think we got to do as an entrepreneur.
100%. And a lot of people don't do that because we're chasing after the shiny objects and people who are going to say, I'm a marketing expert. And look,
Well, yeah.
I'm not a marketing expert. I get you your story and your brand. I know how to do some marketing and I've been successful, but I'm not going to claim to things that I don't do. I know how to stay in my lane. Again,
Yeah.
when I was managing, my career, I knew I couldn't give out legal advice. I stay in my lane. I've been a coach for many years. I learned a lot of things. Even my bachelor's degree was in behavioral science, but I wasn't a therapist. I didn't get a license for
Right.
therapy, so I knew different ways, techniques, how to reduce stress, which I've done. But I don't say I'm a therapist. Come talk to me. Let me be a therapist. So that's not something that I do, and not everybody talks about that, about staying in your lane. And I think that's really so important to stay in your lane.
So then do you help entrepreneurs? I mean, entrepreneur is like the biggest growth experience you can go through because there's always another level to go to. So do you help people go from one level to the next?
I do. We up level. I call it up leveling
Yeah.
because I've been there. I mean, that's the part that I can't say enough is how do you want to get to the head of the class first? Who wants to go through the pain? I know. Look, I've made plenty of mistakes, but I want to make sure that you or anybody else like you doesn't go through those mistakes.
Right.
You know, that's the thing is I have a unique set of skill sets where use me. That's really what the business becomes is why would you hire somebody? They have more information than you do. And that
Right.
doesn't mean that they're better. You could become better. I hope everybody becomes better. I used to, when I was working only in the mental wellness space, I used to say if in 6 months we're still working on the same project, I have not done my job, and you get your money back. And they all look at me. Yeah, and they all look at me. I'll tell you, I've never given anybody their money back. I know how to move you. Now, if you're not willing to do the work, I can't do anything for you. But it's the same thing as a book. How many people have a book? And here I'm going to bring something out. You see this passport?
Yeah.
Yeah, this passport is a little story. I guarantee you, there are people who are listening to this podcast who have something like that passport, a promise that they made. That passport is my friend Kevin's. He died unexpectedly in 2022. And when I was cleaning out his house because he had no brothers and sisters, I took care of his mom. I found this in a closed envelope. So I opened it up. It was his passport. Passport is a promise, right? The cemeteries that we go into are full of unfulfilled promises.
Yeah.
And how do you get that out there? I mean, so, it's really fulfilling your promises, learning what you have to learn, finding a mentor, but finding the right mentor. Spend the time to interview them like you did last night. After the phone call, you started asking the tough questions. They couldn't answer the tough questions. My guess is you didn't hire them.
Oh, no.
Right. Yeah, no. So, right.
No.
Answer the right
The
question.
whole time she's saying, "Oh, we're seeing if we're a good fit. We're seeing if we want to work with you." And after 50 minutes, she told me her thing, and she says, "Well, so what do you want to do now?" I said, "Well, you've been telling me this whole time that you want to see if I'm a good fit for you. So you tell me." "Oh, I never said that." I'm like, she said it 10 times, and I'm just at that point I just hung up. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not.
They don't like, people don't like to be that, and again, we're not the right fit for everybody. So you have to find the right fit. And that's where the right fit under the right circumstances does become magic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you are paying for expertise on what you're doing, right? So, why should somebody go to you, Jeanette, after you've been in years in a business, then come to me when I can maybe talk to you, 5 or 10 things to solve? That I couldn't charge the same amount, and I shouldn't charge the same amount,
Yeah,
right?
people do though.
100%. I've invested a lot of money for people who didn't provide the services that they promised, and I don't do that. I know when I go to sleep, I'm
Right?
myself in the face. I know that one day I'm going to meet my maker, and I'm not going to be proud of everything that I did, but I also am going to be proud that for the things that I did and the things I learned to make sure were fine-tuned to be the best man that I could be.
Exactly. I mean, oh my gosh, I just heard this story the other day. A designer who she like we're allowed to mark things up, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
And there's an expected, and 100% is a gift, and we rarely get to do that. They say we should do it, but it's really rare that you really can do that. This lady marked something up like 4 times, 100%. It was 400%.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. And it's people like that give us a bad name. And she made a ton of money. The client's unhappy, and she's not going to get a referral. I mean, to me, it's like you treat people well. I deserve to make a living for what I'm doing. I'm not trying to gouge anybody, but I'm not trying to rip anybody off either. And
well, I think that's,
it's
what you just said was really important, is the impact. So
right?
no matter what type of entrepreneur or not even an entrepreneur, any sort of business, you want to have everybody knows you should be making a profit, right? 100%. That nobody should be upset with that. But to gouge somebody or to take advantage, and you're not leaving an impact. So just to do a job, I don't want that. That's why I have so many skill sets, because over the years I've collected them. So, a lot of people, I mean, you heard my bio. It sounds like, it could be all over the place, right? He does this, he does that. He'll change your tire if you want. Yes, I could. I'm not a mechanic, but I could change the tire. But the real truth of the matter is that we don't want to do too much. We want to make sure the impact. And that's why I say, after 6 months, if I don't get you something, if I don't get you, I ask them for as little as they want, and then I make sure I overproduce, because that's the reputation, because that's part of my brand. Is I'm not just gonna give you something and then walk away. I'm looking to build long-term relationships, because of what I've done
Right.
over the course of my life. That's how I always did. I knew the vendors that I would want to work with, my preferred vendors versus vendors that I don't know you, man. I'll give you a shot, but it doesn't always work that way.
Right. Yeah. No, you've got to. I've got clients that come back to me, 15 years later, I'm redoing their houses or doing another part of their house. And that means you did good. When you get the referrals, you did good, you know, and that's going to make me more money in the long run than gouging somebody,
100%. Again, I know that from, in every business that works. And I've seen it live. It's just like you do right by one person, right? And think about how you want to spend your money. If I do right by you, guess what? You're going to try to do right by me. And very rarely will somebody, I call it that old menschkeit. It's between men. It's a Yiddish word, but it's that old handshake. It doesn't have to be about, that, but that's how we used to work. The country, society. That handshake used to mean something.
it doesn't anymore.
And not
People will lie to you. They'll sign papers. They'll shake your hand. They'll lie to you, look you straight in the eye, and then,
and that's why you have to, just be, find your people.
right.
That's the most important part is finding your people. That's why I go on these podcasts to find my people, but to also connect with, amazing people like yourself who then, I then, oh, okay, now Jeanette's in my circle. So when I pull things together, hey, Jeanette, do you want to do this? Those are my people. I don't just look for anybody. I have a story. It's amazing when I go on to be interviewed and they go, what are you going to say? I'm like, well, all right, I already researched you, or vice versa when they're a guest on my podcast. I know what I want you to say. I know where I'm walking you through my story on, your story through my show. And that's the important thing is I don't give any magic. I don't have any magic beans. I don't like magic beans. I want to give you, real meat. One of my grandfathers was a butcher, so I want to give you the meat and potatoes, and I want to make sure that you're fed when you're done working with me, or when you want to have some more meals.
It's a very refreshing attitude, honestly, because so many people, I think the coaching world, and I've been on these coaching calls where it's like, it's all about them getting to 10K months or 100K a year or whatever their goal is. And I remember, and this was early on, I heard one of the big coaches at the time say, it doesn't matter if you actually improve people's lives. That's up to them to take the information and do something with it. It's just your job to put it out there. And I'm like, okay, if you're talking to 100 people on a group call, I see that. But to me, if somebody's giving me, these are like $10,000, $20,000 courses.
Well, that's the difference. So that's what I was going to say to you. So I have courses like that. Here you go. You want to take a video course? Great. Give me $50 a month, right?
Right.
For $50, you either go or you don't go. That's on you. But if you're going to invest some serious money with me, then I have that obligation. I have to make sure, it's one of my first questions is, are you willing to do the work? And if you're not willing to do the work, then it doesn't matter what value I bring, right? I always say, even in therapy, if you went to Sigmund Freud, right, the father of, it doesn't matter that you went to him if you're not willing to do the work.
Exactly.
And that's really the ideas behind that.
So tell me a little bit about your coaching and what it is you actually offer. I mean, you've talked a lot about it, but let's get.
So what I do is it's depending on what people want. I have a bunch of things, but what I want to do is what their goal is. So the goal hopefully would be to create a brand, to really understand brand wise what they want, and then create language around that. So again, one of my brands is, where it says your heart was my first book, right? When your heart says it's your time to soar. And it really is, because I've been always talking about the phoenix metaphor, that rising out of the ashes. And I was doing mental wellness at that time. I was a certified recovery peer advocate. So I help people through recovery. And that was one of the things that I learned along the ways. And I got licensed to do that. But a lot of people don't want mental wellness. So I'm like, all right, let me figure out what do they want. Well, they want books. You have all these millions of compilation books. I don't particularly like the compilation books. I talk about it. It generally helps somebody else build their brand, not you. It doesn't help you.
I agree.
Don't
I've
talk.
been in a couple of them, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. No, and I've been in a couple also. So it's not. But I'm like, it never really helped me because I was building somebody else's brand, and I'm not here to build somebody else's brand. I'm here to work for me and partner with people for sure. So I help people through that process of finding out who the most authentic person that is there. We think we're authentic, but then when we go, nah, I wouldn't put that on Facebook. Well, okay, then why not? Again, I've said on Facebook I don't like compilation books, but people don't, try to talk to me about it, or if they do, they're like, well, it's wrong. I'm like, okay, educate me. I want people to educate me, and I want to.
It's exposure. It's exposure. But people spend $5,000 to put a chapter in somebody else's book they never make any money from, and they're hoping that that person has enough exposure to make maybe they get one client from them and make some money back.
Yeah, and it's really not that much exposure, because I've been in books with Tony Robbins wrote the forward, and I'm not knocking anybody who puts those things together, but be honest. Like, give me the real honest answer. Like we said, I don't do bait and switches. And then I help people write books. I've written several books. In fact, over the next couple of days, you're going to see me putting out some more books because I had a lot of books that were in my laptop, and I'll get to the editing part. But then when 2 months ago, when I had my heart situation, I was like, man, I'm that guy, in the cemetery. I'll have all these books. If I would have died, God forbid, my daughters would have just cleared cleaned up the house. They would have wiped all of the work that I have on my laptop, and that would have been the story.
Wow.
Now there's stories out there. There's fiction books, and everybody who's read any of the books that I wrote, they love it because it's that homespun, knowledge, and that's what I do because I'm teaching everybody all the things that I do. It aligns with who I am and the brand that I want to become and that I have become. So that's why you have to have a strategy. That's where those people might be coming to you, but if you don't have a strategy, when you walk into a house and they're hiring you, you have to have a strategy when you walk in. That doesn't mean it won't change, but once you have a strategy, so you could tell a client, you could advise a client. That's what I do is arrange all the content so you could start using your language. Again, when I use a lot of the brand language, I have two. You could have more than one brand, right? So but depending on what you do. So when I talk about personal development, I do some of the peace, love, and bring a bat. Right, it's about bringing balance and things like that. But I have language built around it. You want to hit your sweet spot, all those things. Then when I talk about taking you on a different journey, when you want to uplift yourself and fly and soar, I have language around that about the Phoenix Rise and how you want to rise. It all depends on how you want to handle it. It's the same message. It's the aligned message that comes together. And that's what I do is I align your message because I've aligned mine. And either you like it or you don't. That's a personal preference, but it's aligned and I'm honest off and online and it's easy to figure out.
That's really awesome. We have like 5 minutes left ish. So, is there any particular program you want to plug, or how can we get a hold of you? What do you have any freebies to offer?
Yeah, well, I'll put anybody on. So anybody, I'll send you my. You have my calendar link. Anybody who's interested for an hour, so I will give you an hour of my time. Get on my calendar. A lot of coaches say don't do that, don't exchange it, don't give it away for free. I'll give you if you want to continue and you want to learn a little bit more about branding, the branding that I do, and maybe write your own book or write your first book, and why that's a really valuable tool. I can explain that as well. Reach out to me, and it's davidchemetsky.com. So, that's my website. That's where the calendar is. And, that's what I would say to do. Or listen to the podcast. There's, some great guests. If you've ever gone through life, we've all had life hit us with a double-edged sword, and listen to other people, how they get through recovery, resilience, and all those things. Another one of my programs is really teaching about the R in your heart. Those words, those R words, the resilience, the repetition at times to get better at things. There's a lot of R words that I love talking about, the reflection that we want to do and the power that we have.
Beautiful. Now, resilience is everything. I mean, I had, the dark night of my soul about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And, I got to a place where my heart was broken into millions of pieces. And I was like, how am I going to stand up? And, but it's putting, I kept waking up, much to my chagrin, but I kept waking up and I was like, oh, I got to do more today. And you just kind of keep putting the pieces back together. And, the thought of, I did pray that I wouldn't wake up, but the thought of like, if I got another day, I got to do something, I got to put the pieces back together,
I've been there. I've been in that dark. I'm a suicide survivor. That was what my TEDx talk was about. So, and since that moment of the attempt to where I'm at now, I've published more than 10 books, solo books, as well as the TEDx talk, having, all these other opportunities because I chose to get up out of the ashes. And, and it's hard. I believe you know it, but it's worth it.
But it would have been harder for me to just stay down. Like that would have been harder for me to like just, well, okay, this is it. God gave me another day. I got to fix.
Yep. There's always an opportunity,
right?
Opportunity.
Mark, did you have something you need to say? I don't know.
Nope.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeanette. I really appreciate it. I hope we can continue and build on this connection and really.
Yeah, this was really fun. Absolutely. And if you want to come back another time, I'm going to be coming out with a book soon. And so we can do some on that.
Hey, Jen and Dave, that's what I was going to say. Y'all can hear me now and everything like that. But one of the things that I was saying that I really heard your conversation, Dave, that you said that is very interesting because I work at a cultural arts center. And one of the things that we talk about is how people don't document their items. And you were talking about how if you passed away, that a lot of what you had already accomplished would be lost and everything like that. And that's something that happens both with businesses as well as people that have got all this great documentation. So that's one of my great fears. And we're actually doing something here at the center where we're finding these documents that were here in the center and are trying to find ways to preserve them because a lot of times they've just been in storage and had not been saved. So you really resonated with me when I heard what you were talking about and your fear with your daughters and everything like that. Because I know even some of the businesses here, like we have a famous newspaper and some famous videographers, and unfortunately their family members inherited what they had but don't know what they have, and therefore they're just sitting in storage and aren't really doing anything with it.
Yeah, no. One of the things when I started writing books, I worked with a lot of veterans who, you have stories. We generally, statistically, we only live 2 generations past whenever we close our eyes. You talk about your kids, and maybe we get to talk about grandkids, but having the ability to tell those stories. So I love sitting with people. I just sat this week with a woman who I got to hear about her great grandmother's story and how it weaves together. And one of my friends whose brother had committed to, it was one of the 22, which the number is actually really higher, of veterans who passed away. He goes, not on my watch. And those words hit me, is not on my watch. Not on my watch will I not tell my parents' stories. Right. This weekend, I don't know when it's going to come out, but it is Father's Day. Father's Days are really important. One of the books that I just came out, I just got the illustrations this morning. I don't do illustrations. Is for an ex-father-in-law that I had, that was a book about him, about Lou Bonagura. Those are the that we actually move that through is by passing it forward. Much like when we collected all those garments from my friend Stacy about her husband, we show love, and it's the antiques, it's the stories. At the end of the day, when everybody's eyes close, it's the stories that people want. And right, you'd like one more conversation with whomever that is for you. What would you do if you had a book that just told the family stories, but like in a way that becomes something much more powerful. And that's what I bring.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Jeanette, and everything like that. But it's interesting you said not on my watch because a friend of mine used to do a veteran program where he would do the road to Apollo, so he would take winners up to the Apollo there in New York. But that's something that he would say whenever he would talk about veterans, because a lot of veterans are being abused and going through stuff. But he would say that he
Yeah,
was giving those statistics not on my watch. So as we would do the show, and usually it'd be about intermission, he would give some of these statistics around veterans and what they go through, whether it's around disease or other things, even suicide and all along those lines. And that was his quote as well, not on my watch.
Yep, 100%. I worked. I do a lot of work with veterans, and that's how I started some of my mental wellness work, helping some Vietnam veterans and things like that. So no, veterans. I was born on an Air Force base, but I had two grandfathers who were World War II vets, and my dad didn't go to Vietnam, but he was he was a Vietnam, era person. So we're really good at training our veterans while they're in service. When they get out of service,
They don't get nothing.
we're less good. But that's how society is. Also, we're really good at telling you what to do when you're doing a job. You don't know how to transfer some of those skills, and that's one of the things that I've always been good at, teaching people or being a mentor to help people transfer the skills they have into something else. As we keep changing, that is also so important.
Very cool. Dave, I want to give you a couple last words to leave people with and give your website again, and then we will go and can do spice foods because it helps with being healthy. So go ahead and finish and give us some last words.
Okay, well, the last words I'll say to you is live your life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Do what you can. Don't hurt anybody, obviously, but how I end my podcast. Peace and love should be your foundation, and when you start there, and when you need to bring a bat, it's not a violent bat. It's about bringing awesome thoughts. Educate yourself, and be authentic. Be who you are, and you'll hit the sweet spot every time. And when you hit your sweet spot, it really resonates.
It's really beautiful. And it's so true. It's so true. Thank you so much. This was fun.
I appreciate it.
And we will go to Can Do Spice so you can get your healthy spices in. Go ahead, Mark.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements, but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.